Y'all know why we here. Y'all know why we are here. This fucking video is an hour long. Hit 100 views. It's not even. It is a achievable goal. 100 views. I'll do a live stream session discussing this whole journey up to this point, and things like that with the viewers, the people that enjoyed this Nakama's journey. Totally not Mark's. 100% a blind One Piece review from start to where we at right now. All the fans, viewers, whatever you want to call yourself, of him or this series, I'll do something like that. Y'all let me know in the comment section what you guys think. I'm gonna go ahead and hit play because it's about that time to take off. That's all I gotta say. It is an hour video. Here we go.
This arc is incredible.
Incredible. Off the bat.
For my time reviewing it is that words are cheap. This
Thank
arc
you.
acts as the climax to well over 500 chapters worth of build-up and storytelling. It provides breathtaking action and tragedy on a scale the likes of which most stories never even dream of approaching. And while this arc is, as I said, incredible, it also serves to punctuate that not only is this world far more savage and ruthless than I once anticipated, not only is this story more morally gray and tragic than we once perceived, but it also emphasizes that this modern epic of a tale is still nowhere near done, and that this adventure, whether we are emotionally ready for it or not, is going to continue. I'm Tony Mark, and this is my first impressions of, thoughts on, and review for a tale that made me cheer, made me smile, made me angry, and it made me weep with despair. This is my review for the story that broke me, One Piece's greatest achievement to date, the Marineford arc.
I fucking said it. Yo, look. That was fucking wonderful. He used my words with it too. He said it broke him. Outside I like, yeah, it fucking broke you. It's gonna break you, bro. It's gonna break you. I told you Marineford was going to break you. This is it. This is it. This is it. This is where you this is Mark. This is where you officially said to yourself, this may be the greatest mangaka of all time in writing right now, mangaka wise, because this is set. Let's play the video.
This arc opens in a manner that is uniquely tense, achieved by way of not showing us the main protagonistic group at all, but by instead deciding to let the world of One Piece act as its very own character, focusing on showing us collections of its inhabitants in various circumstances and locations, dropping what they are doing and shifting their attention to the screens erected for this specific occasion. Something like this hasn't happened in One Piece to date, which serves the scene incredibly well, impressing onto us the spectacle, sense of occasion, and importance this moment means within the world it's taking place within. With bated breath, thousands, if not millions of people await the moment that will change everything. A moment that could very well harken in the end of an era. The execution of Fire Fist Ace. And with that attention-grabbing opening sequence comes revelations.
Yeah, I'm not gonna really. I'm just gonna say that this one, there's gonna be parts where I'm gonna have to be kind of like, just quiet, cause like what he has to say means much more than my reaction is part of it, this journey, but at the same time, what he has to say means a lot to me as my peer, and I need to see what I'm listening. You see what I'm saying? At the same time, I want to give you guys the best reactions, so that's why if I start pausing more often, is because of that. This is a different style of review for this particular one. Very sorry. This yeah, like I said, this is important. These are major videos. Certain videos are major, and then if I'm doing the series, the other ones, there's certain things that this is major. Let's get it.
And 5 warlords of the sea Fleet Admiral Sengoku announces that the execution of Ace is incredibly important due to his parentage. His mother was revealed to be a lady by the name of Portgas de Rouge, who resided in the South Blue, and his father, none other than the former king of the pirates, Gold D. Roger. This man, this left me utterly gold.
I even unconsciously rewinded it back. That's why I couldn't say anything to you. I was like, yeah. It's fucked up, bro. I told you in the last thing I said it. I said it's fucked up. I said, bro, it's fucked up. I'm like, yeah, the situation was fucked up, yeah.
This man, this left me utterly stunned. Last week I made predictions and drew conclusions because I thought he was Luffy's biological brother. At the time, all I knew about the character was that he never took the monkey name and resented his father. Therefore, I assumed he specifically didn't want to have anything to do with Dragon and so didn't take the monkey name. In the same way Luffy is told not to speak about him specifically. And so, when it was revealed that Goldie Roger was in fact his biological father, I was utterly floored. And what's more is that something of interest regarding the music design within this particular episode of the anime during this reveal is interesting to say the least. During this specific reveal, there's more going on a musical technical level than you might have thought, using a music technique called the leitmotif. A leitmotif is a piece of music that represents a person, place, or thing. For example, think Superman's theme or the Force theme from Star Wars. These are recognizable pieces of music that represent either a person or an idea. And using these leitmotifs intelligently during a long-running series like One Piece can offer a bunch in the way of adding more underlying meaning to a scene, or in this case with Ace, foreshadowing. If you listen to this scene, before it's revealed that Goldie Roger is the father of Ace, we hear Roger's theme play. Meaning, had we been listening for this, it would have been possible to predict that Roger was Ace's father simply by listening to the music, which is a really fun little piece of musical design trickery, I thought. But all of that is honestly small potatoes.
Small potatoes. Here we go.
New World and Whitebeard
Oh yeah.
Grand entrances, with Whitebeard
Everybody
emerging
is
from
here.
beneath the ocean in a grand fashion, setting the scene dramatically, literally making Luffy and his forces afterthoughts. These massive presences collectively tell us that the New World is no joke, and that Luffy could very well be out of his depth. Ace's flashback. There's a fascinating sequence of flashbacks that go through Ace's life after he left Luffy 3 years before his adventure even began, during which he turns down an offer to become a warlord of the sea and earns the respect of Whitebeard from afar. But perhaps the most interesting piece of information from this sequence, somewhat conversation takes place. And okay, I'm aware I could very well be digging in a place that has nothing to glean, but here I go anyway. The fact that 7 years ago Shanks saved his brother. Shanks, with this single piece of info, immediately knew who he was talking about, and that he must be talking about Luffy, which tells me that Shanks might very well not be the type of person who makes a habit of saving people, signifying to me once again that Luffy was specifically special for some reason that still eludes me, a reason that was enough to give up his arm for. But maybe I'm reading too much into that. Following this, surprisingly vast collection of events shown to us that led him to where he is today.
I don't know what to tell you. I'm not.
Assembled a crew, tried to take down Whitebeard, only to have him be accepted into his ranks, showing to us his interactions with Blackbeard, whom he was ranked higher than. It's a super interesting story, but something that really stuck out to me and struck me as interesting was how Whitebeard insists that he ordered Ace to do what he did instead of Ace having gone off and done it on his own accord. And trust me, to say that this arc has yet to show its hand is the understatement of the century. Not only is the best still to come, but what makes this arc one of the most spectacularly written sequences is yet to be shown.
Right?
This is a war, both thematically
and
narratively,
figuratively,
with the inclusions of characters like Whitebeard making massive moves, unveiling to us his incredible devil fruit power, the ability to create
earthquakes.
On an ocean battlefield, this can create tsunamis, and on land, this can level an entire civilization.
Yo!
This is the most destructive and impressive power that's been revealed in this series to date, which in and of itself is already full of tremendous, incredible powers. And that's not to say that we don't get introduced to
Yo, the Marineford. Oh my god, dude. The flashbacks that I'm having right now is fucking incredible. Everything right now is just like a highlight reel going through my head, reading and watching this shit at the same. I was reading and watching it at the same goddamn time. My guys, I was reading and watching One Piece at the same time. I was literally at the same page, almost at the same pace as the episodes. I'm, oh, whoa, oh God, dude, this is yeah. Continue, Mark.
Powers in this thick boy of an arc either. One of the main men
Thick
working under
boy.
Whitebeard goes by the name of
Marco
and his
Phoenix.
power is incredibly cool, maybe even overpowered, as he wields the strength and ability of a phoenix, which on its own is nuts. Additionally, we find it in the scene of Flamingo, who to me has all the charisma and chaotic neutral attitude of Deadpool. On a number of occasions, we see him laughing at both the misfortune and fortune of the Navy and the pirates, respectively, wanting only for things to get more interesting, demonstrating no particular allegiance other than the side that offers the most interesting outcome for him to enjoy, which honestly makes for a really intensely with some truly curious devil fruit abilities, offering him control of other individuals. It's really awesome.
Wow.
Ending on his thoughts with this quote that I think perfectly sums up his character's nihilistic view of the world succinctly. Justice will prevail, of course, because the side of justice will be whichever side wins.
Doflamingo.
As I mentioned earlier, this is a war that offers a super interesting power struggle between the Navy and Whitebeard's forces, acting as a complex game of chess where once thought to be loyal pieces begin acting on behalf of the other side or in their own best interests. Characters like Hancock and Garth find themselves either actively taking action against the Navy or sitting out of this battle entirely as they have too much emotionally invested in it. And it's through these really complex motivations and characters we once again see One Piece's greatest strength rear its head, either through giant struggles with the Child of Oars or with the cunning manipulation on behalf of Whitebeard, who gets a tremendous level of shine and performance in these chapters, highlighting that One Piece is a beast into and of itself with regards to its ability to develop its world, develop its characters, and place them into the most interesting situations possible. But perhaps the most impressive aspect in this first bit of the arc is the sheer lack of any main characters present.
Right.
Neither the Straw Hats nor Luffy are seen very much at all for prolonged stints of time. Instead, large portions of
it's all focused on Whitebeard.
Like Ace and Whitebeard, who up until now haven't received much screen time at all thus far. And this is awesome because Oda knows that we are invested in the story one way or the other, so he can present the story in
whichever way he wants,
fit as the best option, without being burdened by the obligation to always have Luffy or the rest of the cast present at all times. Now that's quality, that's confident writing. I love to see it. But as I was saying, this arc's opening sequence is first and foremost there to serve two characters, with pretty much every interaction working on behalf of both of these individuals, including every flashback sequence, building our understanding of the inner workings with these two. But by far the most insightful being how Whitebeard demands to take full responsibility for Ace's pursuit of Blackbeard, despite it being Ace's stubborn idea, with Whitebeard actively advising him against it, recontextualizing Ace and Whitebeard's father-son relationship with a single scene. However, once Luffy does eventually enter the equation, he does so in typical Luffy fashion, flying out of the sky with a bang, crashing to the sea below, immediately inserting himself into the effort to save Ace while also asserting his presence to one of the Emperors of the Sea in Whitebeard, who really just likes his spirit. Which on its own is such an awesome little scene. In it, there's a beautiful sense of progression and loss, while Luffy is asserting his determination to become the king of the pirates. All the while, his crew is nowhere to be found. It's bittersweet to be sure, resulting, however, in a great snapshot and opportunity once again for Whitebeard's character to demonstrate his strategic prowess, taking a warning from Luffy, citing that Ace was going to be executed ahead of schedule and understanding it as a ploy on behalf of the Navy to try and confuse them, which he sees through and totally takes advantage of later. By the way, this arc made me love Whitebeard, if I didn't make that perfectly clear. When I first saw him, I didn't really see much beyond a man that looks sort of sickly with stubborn ways and maybe a drinking problem. But in this arc, he is shown to be a strong man, both of body, mind, and character. One that takes the first step forward and looks out for all of his crew as he does so. And it's not just Whitebeard we get acquainted with either. A lot of his crew, including
Marco Phoenix.
like Marco, that I strictly like because of his awesome fire powers. I have a thing for fire powers. We also have a fantastic set-piece sequence wherein Luffy screams to his brother and their eyes meet. Luffy is over Luffy being there in the first place, blaming himself completely as Luffy struggles across the battle-torn area. Another curious tidbit of passing information came in the form of the real Bartholomew Kuma having now
Oh,
died.
yeah.
And why this is interesting requires me to go over something I never touched on last week, which was that Eva's decision to help Luffy in that rescue
Was
for
to
his
go
brother
help
came about
Kuma.
specifically because he was a revolutionist, part of the forces of Dragon. To him, he was saving the son of Dragon, someone he was sworn to, which on its own adds even more depth to the situation. But in this instance now in Marineford, it becomes more interesting when we discover that Kuma was a part of that very revolutionary army under Dragon, which places him in the same spot Eva was in. Which now makes me understand why Luffy and all his friends survived in the archipelago all those chapters ago. I love this story. And by the way,
I don't reveal shits in my reviews. Stop it. I don't reveal shit in my reviews. I told you. Fucking nuts. Fucking nuts. Take it away, Mark.
Sorry if this feels like I'm darting from cool moment to cool moment, but this really is how the first 10 chapters of this arc unfold. From Buggy to Croc fighting Doflamingo to Luffy finally taking on Hawkeye, and that last one was super interesting, primarily because of what Hawkeye says right before he attacks him. I'm going to leave that on screen for a few seconds. And it's sufficiently interesting, if not for any other reason other than it's Hawkeye
Sorry, red haired, but this power knows no restraint. Now, Fate, how will you deal with this heaven sent boy? Will his life end here, or will he escape this black blade?
versus Luffy, but it also contains some dialogue that feels like Hawkeye is writing a character study on Luffy himself with this line. It's not his powers or techniques. He possesses some quality that makes others want to help him. And in these waters, that is the most formidable power of all. Which is so true, but it's also before he knows the full extent of how special Luffy really is. But more on that later.
More on that later.
I feel like there was a tremendous sense of occasion, then the next sequence of scenes will fix that definitely. The pacing in this arc only knows one direction, and that's up, up, up. The stakes, the consequences, becomes more and more intense chapter by chapter. And this one is no different. When Sengoku orders all the video transmission snails to be cut off, and that's when this happens.
Oh. Yeah.
Everyone reading this story at this point knows how formidable these thick boys are, and so when you're shown an army of them pressing forward, the feeling of dread becomes all the more apparent. The design of Kuma for a role specifically like this works insanely well. These cold-blooded bots are very much Terminators, both from an action standpoint and a character design standpoint. Expressionless, without even the ability to see the eyes of the character, these mechanical monstrosities march forward with the same emotionless malice any machine would. And because of that, their army feels like all the more like a force of nature. But that's not where things end. Whoa, no.
Yeah.
The position they're pressing forward from and the timing of their unveiling comes as a result of Sengoku's strategy. While watching this arc unfold as well as Impel Down, I was constantly struggling to justify in my own head why the Navy wanted to execute Ace as much as they did publicly. And this sequence sheds light on that very situation, knowing that someone with the lineage of Ace would draw the ocean's most powerful and dangerous enemies to the Navy, offering what many people would perceive as only a negative, but Sengoku, in a stroke of strategic genius, saw the opportunity this situation uniquely presented that no one...
Free.
I'm free.
Free as a bird.
We've given you a 40-cent raise, Peyton. Congratulations. I can still picture that exact moment when my bot
saw, having created a field of ice for the battle to take place on, having now gathered all the pirates in one area, Sengoku effectively hatched the plan.
He made a fucking plan, man.
The new world in one fell swoop, using the Kumas as a means of eliminating their only escape route.
If a lot of people love each other, the world would be a better place.
As I was saying, there's this intensely interesting game of chess between White.
Oh, the telenovela. Oh, he did the telenovela. Not the telenovela. Not the telenovela. You ain't. No, the editor just went there. Oh, shit.
Stop. Listen.
Stop.
This isn't okay. I was just starting to love Whitebeard as a character, and this guy suddenly out of nowhere stabs him. What gives? One aspect that has been hammered home since the beginning of this battle and through Ace's flashbacks has been the treasured relationship and bond everyone in Whitebeard's crew feels with him. Assuming very much a father-like role within all of their lives, with Ace being a textbook example of someone who resented his biological father only to be accepted and adopted by Whitebeard, who has relationships much the same as these with almost all of his crewmates.
Yeah,
and
that's
if there
true.
was one aspect of Whitebeard's character that was stronger than his strategic ability, it would be his love and bond with his adopted children. Though this proved to be an ingenious attack made by Akainu, who fed Squard a lie that Whitebeard sold out his children to save Ace, leading to a successful attack on him, inflicting on the giant, smiling, tenacious pirate his very first wound of the battle.
Wow.
And if you at this point didn't already love Whitebeard, he immediately forgives Squard before embracing him. And this just brought me to tears. It's a beautiful scene that's equal parts both loving and tragic, knowing how horrible Squard must have felt for having done this to his father figure. The writing for Whitebeard in this arc has been carried out with such purpose and care that he honestly feels like the most realistic dad character I've ever read about. So much of this man screams wisdom, love, and hard work, and I sincerely admire him as a character for it. In the space of 15 short chapters, Oda achieves this ludicrously effective father character that, up until this point, I didn't really know much about. And it's feats like this I just pointed out, more so than the cool battle sequences or epic one-liners, that makes Oda for me the best manga of the modern era by far and away that I've read the work of. He's honestly got a gift, and he's not
Become my
done with us for
son.
this arc either. Not by a long shot, because the best stuff is still to come. Final struggle. And this is where stuff gets really, really good. Without belaboring the notion that this is the
really good
I've ever seen committed to the page of a manga, I want to make it known that the driving forces behind what makes this so incredibly effective is how well it implements goals for the audience and mixes those.
Oh yeah, no, everything is all interpolated.
The likes of which we haven't ever seen before in this series, with callbacks to prior relationships and techniques creating so many wonderful subversions. This arc is without a doubt the most exceptionally well prelude. We all know these characters, we all know their powers, and we understand all the motivating factors. This is the icing on top of this magnificent one-piece cake, and man, is it sweet. This is the moment the Navy showed their true plan.
Vámonos, coño! Let's go!
Steel walls around the pirates as they continue to get attacked from the rear by the advancing army of Kuma clones. Things are quite literally at their worst. The forces of the pirates are dwindling and in severe trouble. Ace is being ready for execution, and Whitebeard is down.
Ooh.
Absolute mad lad. What a terrific character moment for Rock. Firmly declaring his position in the war effort, screaming at Whitebeard to be the emperor he proclaimed to be and to not be defeated by such a weak attack, encouraging him to once again regain his footing and lead the charge in the war. And once again, like the monster he is, Whitebeard presses the assault, ordering his forces to advance alongside Luffy and his crew, with even Jr., who became injured earlier in the confrontation, to help lower one of the walls in order for them to escape. However, despite all of this tenacious energy and effort being exerted by the New World's forces and Luffy, the young pirate recognizes that he won't be able to make it in time at this rate. He needs a plan to get closer, and through sheer genius, they utilize a technique that was established in the prior arc, shooting and erupting from the battlefield far below, landing right before the three admirals of the Navy. Unflinching, he readies to attack and push past anyone he needs to in order to save his brother. At this time, Whitebeard's forces managed to push past the gap created by the mortally wounded child of Oars. And the battle that ensues between Luffy and the admirals highlights once again how utterly unprepared he is to be in this situation, possessing within him more heart than perhaps anyone in this battle combined. Despite having tremendous intentions, he isn't able to do this without the help of everyone's combined effort, and unable to get past the forces of these exemplary warriors representing the Navy, all Luffy can do is watch as Sengoku gives the order and Ace accepts his fate to be executed.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Is it a hot take for me to say that Croc is the MVP of this war? Because he totally is. It's incredible and I love it. Frieza fighting Goku to save Vegeta. But again, if not for the efforts of Croc at this last minute and the eventual reinforcements Whitebeard and his crew offer, Luffy would have most definitely been taken out there and then. And to be honest, even with their help, he pretty much was. With Whitebeard there and then trying to bench him. But you do not bench Monkey D. Luffy. Which is something Whitebeard can't help but once again admire about him.
He tried to bench him. Oh, buggy. Damn it. Try to guess it.
During this lull in the action, Marco tries to make a move for Ace while the admirals are distracted and the other forces are preoccupied. And this is when we see some of the most visceral emotional conflict from the arc. Garp stands in the way of them rescuing Ace. the boy
Wow.
he raised. On his face, you can see it. The conflicted expression of someone who doesn't have conviction in the actions he's taking anymore. Right, wrong, family, duty. Swirling around his head, forming a cocktail of doubt, the likes I've never seen before in One Piece, which was a super interesting dynamic to shine a light on. And as Marco's Phoenix crashes to the floor below, the situation worsens.
Oh, yeah.
Whitebeard is gravely wounded, and more than that, is in an incredibly compromising situation. Marco was ineffective, the admirals are all dominating their respective adversaries, and what's more, Luffy's adrenaline boost given to him by Eva is no longer sufficient to overcome the fatigue and injury his body has sustained over the last few arcs. And because of that, he asks him to once again use his power to give him
boost his ass one more time.
energy to lift his lifeless body to do what he believes needs to be done. And the back and forth here once again encapsulates Luffy as the hero of the story in a way that is so true to his character. Throughout this entire saga, Luffy has been losing, failing to save the
He hasn't been able to do anything.
losing his entire crew while he himself was completely helpless to make the smallest difference. It's for that specific reason he was relieved when Hancock offered him the option to save the 3 women in Amazon Lily. Luffy absolutely will always choose to save his friends at great cost to himself. And this instance is no different. Knowing full well that the second sudden surge of adrenaline into his body could kill him, he demands and orders Eva to do it anyway, citing that he couldn't live with himself if he didn't do everything he could possibly to save Ace. And
That's
with that,
family.
his wish is granted, and his body becomes overcome with power and purpose. Luffy explodes through street and surges with unbelievable speed towards Ace, dodging any and every obstacle that stands in his way, including his friend Kobe, whom he without hesitation knocks to the floor. However, despite this incredible surge of raw emotion and strength from Luffy,
it don't
he
matter.
Still won't make it. And once again, Ace prepares himself for execution.
And then
This made me cry. This utterly beautiful moment, a snapshot in time, for 2 reasons made me cry. The sheer build-up and explosion of action that left me in awe, but also because thematically it works just perfectly. There I go using that word again. Luffy's literal love for his brother manifests within him and brings out this hidden power he isn't aware of in order to save Ace, his brother, from the clutches of those who would do him harm. I love this series. I don't know how else to say it. It's impossibly good. Here it is. And this moment is it. The singular pause.
Yeah.
The chance they need to turn the
Let's
tide
go.
in this war. To save whom they came to save. As Whitebeard bellows, back up Luffy the Straw Hat with everything you've got. The combined efforts of all the warlords on their side, including Croc, all the subordinates of Whitebeard and himself included.
Yeah.
And even the sudden assistance from Inazuma. It takes every last person giving it their
everything.
unmitigated all to give
This
Luffy
shit
a
was
single second's worth of
crazy,
chance.
bro. Oh, I keep stopping. I keep stopping. Ugh.
Get into position. But once again, someone stands in the way of saving Ace.
Oof.
The emotions on display are so much more complicated and rich than I ever expected them to be. Having only been introduced to Garp after Enies Lobby properly, his role within the story has been limited, but the light this saga has shone on him and his character has made him, especially in this instance, an incredibly touching and moving character.
This was
One that has dedicated his entire life to the line of duty, and now when faced by Ace and Luffy at the same time, he moves to stop the young pirate whom he raised. But in a moment of pure love for his grandson, he can't bring himself to do what he's been trained and conditioned to do all of his life.
Wow.
In this moment, we watch an old grizzled man break, and it's soul destroying. But there's no time to waste, and this story doesn't give me a second to breathe, as when Luffy moves with the key to uncuff his brother Ace, Kizaru, out of nowhere, in the middle of his clash with Whitebeard, shoots the key to pieces. Now what? I'll tell you what, Oda's a bona fide literary genius, and I'll fight anyone who disagrees with me. He utilizes Mr. 3 to create a shield from the incoming Sengoku and creates the wax key. Now now falling to the ground below, the gallows collapsing under the stress of the battle, we experience the single most cathartic sequence I've ever in my life read through.
Luffy.
When I saw that beautiful fireboy explode from those cups and land alongside his brother Luffy, I honestly felt something akin to a panic attack fueled by pure joy.
Yes.
In the dictionary, I'd find some dumb definition that has scientific backing. But in reality, all we need is this image.
It's fucking
this
cool.
Man, while brief, gave me everything I needed and more. We get the banter back and forth between Luffy and his brother. We get to soak in Ace's fiery greatness as he poses up a storm. We get to see two of them experience battle together and do combination moves together. These two do more in this fight than pretty much any team up has done in this series to this day that I can think of. And man, do I love every single radiating second of it. To say that I was giddy at this point would be inaccurate. I was
He said giddy. Look at me. I'm like, yeah, it's like, dude, it's exciting. I shed tears, man. I cried. I really did. I was crying. I was crying. When this happened, I was like, oh, yes. Fucking beautiful. Ah! It was so, oh, Oda, you madman. Oh, you did it. You did this shit. You did this shit. Wonderful, man. Wonderful.
At the time of reading this, irresponsibly happy, as I annoyed pretty much everyone around me while going through it. But as is the case with all good things, eventually, they have to come to an end. Stopping in its tracks the very ship that they need to escape on, with his bare hands, stands the mortally wounded Whitebeard. But all is never that simple. And Admiral Magma starts blustering after insult towards Whitebeard that Ace takes specific issue with. And the very same thing that led him to being captured, his inability to let something go, causes him to get burned by the Admiral. Something neither he nor us thought was possible. You'd be forgiven for believing that this was a story with a light-hearted conclusion. One that has been earned and built up to effectively with a tremendous climax. And it has. But this isn't one of those stories. This arc, and really this entire saga, is about failure. We experience it at the beginning during the climax at the archipelago. We observe a new goal in saving Luffy's brother Ace against impossible odds. We watch as Luffy, through sheer will and determination and a kind heart, bends the world around him for the better in order to save his brother's life. But just as suddenly as he was freed, he's torn away from the young pirate, never to be by his side again, killed. In this arc, we observe the worst moment of Luffy's life, and it's painted right across his face. This hits so powerfully because of a narrative technique incorporating contrast and anticipation. For a scene like this to glean an emotional response from its audience, be it negative or positive, it needs to take its viewer or reader from one mindset into another contrasting one quickly. For example, in the case of Makoto Shinkai's Your Name, there are plenty of moments where I cried with happiness, as we go from moments where we think hope is all lost to shocking revelations of success. We anticipate something bad to happen, and it's then we get shocked when presented suddenly with the opposite. Our minds are surprised by what it's seeing, and therefore the perfect setting is created for an emotional response. But in One Piece, something I've been meaning to talk about for quite some time, but never found the perfect place to discuss it, has been how death, or the lack of death, is dealt with in the series. This was something I've noticed all the way through the series, but it became an issue for me first and foremost in and during the Alabasta arc, where Usopp had his skull literally crushed by a super heavy baseball bat. This bothered me because, in theory, if he was just a regular person, similar to the way we are on Earth, he'd be dead. Like, super dead. But obviously, because this is fiction, Oda can do what he likes. He can create all of these characters and make them all super durable if he so chooses. And they absolutely are, recovering from what would and should be certain death in a matter of days. This, however, for me, presented another issue. So, we have these characters that are ridiculously durable, and that's totally fine, and they can heal like slow Wolverines. Cool. That's totally cool. But one problem that this presents is that the viewers and readers now don't have a fundamental understanding of what can hurt or should kill these individuals. And so when I see Oda literally shattering Usopp's skull and for him to shake it off in a couple of days, I am then not worried at all about Usopp during the vast majority of Enies Lobby, because I know Oda will be consistent. And for the bulk of One Piece, Oda has almost gone to tremendous effort not to kill people. They are either knocked out or run away, which again is totally fine, although in moments like Alabasta or Enies Lobby, with the various enemies and side characters it had, I thought death would have been appropriate for certain instances, and felt like the story was sort of lacking something in that specific regard. But then we get this moment. I love this scene. Not necessarily because I felt the loss of Ace personally, but because I knew that this is the worst moment of Luffy's life. And that shift you felt there from me pointing out something negative about the story to suddenly praising it is that very technique, but in miniature and much less effective. It's about contrast and shifting values. As I've been saying throughout this video, this arc is
interesting.
A specific focus in helping us
It
understand
did.
the backstory
It
of
did.
Ace, which in the series has established
It did
a pattern
something
of
that.
presenting flashbacks as being an indicating factor that we either can expect to see more.
It broke me. It's simple as that.
More of this particular character, or to see him join the crew entirely. But more specifically, that they definitely won't die. They'll get hurt, but they
That's
can't
crazy.
die. And so when Ace is freed and fighting in glorious fashion alongside his little brother, we go from a poetic euphoria full of hope with death being impossible to a sudden stark wave of reality hitting us as we adjust to the impossible suddenly being very possible.
Yep.
Happy to sad, magic to reality. The death of Whitebeard. I think Whitebeard in this series represents a presence, but more so an idea. He's a story, a way of taking on the world while keeping a strong sense of togetherness and family at the forefront of our minds.
Could have said it better myself, man. Could have not said it better myself.
The strongest pirate in the world.
Shit.
And as this arc comes to a close, the presence he imposes and the ideas he represents dies. His era is now over, and what's to follow I can only imagine is much colder and infinitely more dangerous. What's strange also is that had the story of One Piece been about Whitebeard, it would have been a story where the real treasure was the family and friends you make along the way. And that's just who Whitebeard is, which I think is honestly sort of beautiful. A monstrous, imposing man that despite being taken to the brink of death and losing half of his face, refuses to act for himself, but for the lives of his children, his crew, his family. Also, a small but noticeable recurring motif I recognized in this section that I meant to draw attention to in my Enies Lobby review were these text fields that are dotted all around the story of One Piece. They read like the writings of a textbook or that of a storyteller speaking about the time that has long since passed. In this particular instance, it reads, "Even in death, even with half his face gone, he would never fall. He will forever be remembered as a monster for the way he destroyed his enemies that day. In this one battle alone, he suffered 267 sword wounds, was struck by 152 bullets, and 46 cannon blasts, and yet neither that mighty body nor his pirate spirit suffered even one coward's wound." To me, this says that the story of One Piece is being recalled or told. So in other words, we are hearing perhaps a retelling of this story, and that also, possibly, all we've experienced is essentially a flashback telling the story of Luffy's life. This obviously hasn't been confirmed, or maybe it has, I don't know. And I could very well be wrong, but right now it certainly felt that
Interesting.
way. Climaxing on a quote that echoed throughout the pages of the manga in equal parts hopeful and epic, as Whitebeard exclaims in his dying breath, "The One Piece exists," signifying the end of an era and the beginning of a new one. And these two deaths, Ace and Whitebeard, serve as a massive loss in the story due to their significance to the two cornerstones of One Piece. The death of Whitebeard is a massive loss to the world of One Piece. The loss of Ace is a massive loss to the main character of One Piece. Both hold enormous significance and importance within the wider
World
story, and
building
what consequences
and
there'll be thereafter.
direct building.
And speaking of consequences,
Oh. These guys.
There's a surprisingly really interesting symmetry between Blackbeard and Luffy that becomes abundantly obvious in this arc specifically. Both to follow their dreams with reckless abandon. And understanding the full scope of what Blackbeard hopes to achieve in this arc rocks the very foundations of the One Piece story to its core. Hijacking the scene immediately and unloading a barrage of bullets onto Whitebeard, leading to his ultimate death. But perhaps the most significant aspect of what Blackbeard does in this arc is this.
Oh yeah.
For the very first time in One Piece's entire story, and maybe even its history, Blackbeard has become the wielder of two very powerful Devil Fruit abilities. With this being sort of unprecedented territory, I wonder if he's even less susceptible to water right now. Maybe not, but regardless,
Maybe
this
not.
acts as an incredible seed to be planted that sets the stage for the future of this world. But following these events, even more people begin getting slaughtered. It seems in addition to stealing the powers of Whitebeard, Blackbeard also convinced some of the worst, most dangerous pirates from Impel Down to join his crew. This is when we get a glimpse of something we haven't seen since Skypia. Kobe starts freaking out that all the people around him are fading away. They're dying. He seems to have this ability to sense where people are and what's happening to them. Things are in an awful way. Luffy is totally out of it, having made it away to safety on Trafalgar's submarine, even dropping his hat in the process. And the forces of the pirates are pretty much spent here also. And right as Kobe was about to be taken out...
Yes.
Having started his journey as a small kid with more dreams than he had since, Luffy throughout One Piece has grown stronger, taken down obstacles, built a reputation for himself, and made countless friends over his adventures. But beyond anything I've mentioned in this video, what this arc managed to achieve more effectively than perhaps anything
Is that he's
else
human.
being that feeling that the more things change, the more they stay the same. With the first chapter story being that of Shanks showing up at the last minute to make the save for a very young Luffy. And in this latest installment, rounding out hundreds of chapters worth of growth, he still needs to save the young, headstrong kid with more dreams than he has since. Even managing to perform the same gesture by giving him his hat yet again, because Luffy isn't ready. The war-torn battlefield, braved by the bodies of those that had fought bravely that day, can now rest in peace as Shanks declares that the war is over. I do not have words to describe how perfectly structured and paced this war was. From the beginning to the end, everything made sense, or provided further incentive to carry on the story. And so, let's do that.
I like that. You stop it. Stop it. Kyodaya.
The post-war arc. For anyone watching my reviews that have not experienced the story of One Piece firsthand, I can't recommend this series enough, and no matter how flowery my language or how well I describe the events that take place, it's not a replacement and won't compare to the vibrant and rich world
that you gotta
created.
experience.
And that's not even touching on the magnificent character and story writing that fills the pages of Jump's biggest seller. But for those among you that prefer to live through my experiences, I'd like to take this opportunity to apologize in advance for how utterly ridiculous this upcoming cliffhanger is going to be. To describe briefly what takes place within the parameters of this short post-war arc, all I need to say are three separate words: perspective, training, and future. Kicking things off, we pick right back up after the events of the except one. A substantial portion of this arc is spent exploring the past of Luffy, specifically his childhood as he meets with Ace for the very first time, answering questions I had about how and why Shanks had never met the kid before. Garp had left Ace, you see, in a foster care, and we find this out as he leaves Luffy there to get stronger with him. Immediately, Luffy gravitates to Ace despite his insistence on being left alone and wanting nothing to do with him. Day after day, the 7-year-old Luffy would try to follow Ace, who was then 10 years old, to play. But day after day, despite making it farther and farther into the forest each time that Ace would escape into, Luffy loses him. Until one day, he follows him the entire way through. The dynamic on show here through this interaction with Ace not wanting to be around anyone due to his own childhood, coupled with a less refined, more childish version of adult Luffy's personality. There's a raw, honest childishness to these interactions that are dotted throughout. In this story also, Ace has a friend of the same age called Sabo, and both of them have been gathering treasure so that one day they both can become pirates. Luffy expresses his desire to become the king of the pirates someday, but the bond between Luffy and Ace doesn't begin establishing itself until a particular scene where Luffy, despite being cornered by a pirate looking for the loot Ace stole, Luffy refuses to snitch on Ace. And it's after this beating, Oda presents me with the single most heart-wrenching image I've ever seen in One Piece. In that moment, Luffy gains the respect of Ace, but moreover convinces him that he genuinely wants to be with him. Ace has grown up with people hating him for existing, and Luffy, in this scene, because of who he is, specifically loves Ace because he exists, which is just a beautiful and tragic sentiment that adds even more perspective to Ace's last words, causing me to retroactively lament and cry over that scene even more than I already have. On this adventure, Ace, Luffy, and Sabo make a brotherly bond, citing that they will all sail the seas one day to become great pirates.
自由になれない。俺は貴族に生まれて恥ずかしい。
But when Sabo's aristocratic past catches up with him and his father forces him away from Ace, and ultimately into running away from home, his boat is shot by a celestial dragon, killing him. Once this is found out, Luffy and Ace's bond strengthens, as we watch them grow into themselves together, with Ace declaring that he'll never die and that he will always look after his little brother. We get to see both Ace and Luffy set sail for the very first time now with full context for these voyages. And even though this wasn't particularly sad, I found myself welling up as I watched Luffy set sail again from his home in the East Blue. It's sort of overwhelming to think about where this kid came from, what his values are and why he has them, forcing me in that moment to recontextualize everything the series has shown me up until that point. This little story adds so much color to an already vibrant tapestry of a world Oda has already created, creating and reinforcing what could be now my favorite character in all of fiction, Luffy. There's so much to adore about this character, but the main focus of this story, without getting too much into things, is how both Ace and Luffy need to grow stronger to achieve their goals, to protect those they love. And by the time the flashback ends, both Ace and Luffy significantly have grown incredibly strong, and you can see this on their faces of how sure they are as they each shove off for their respective voyages. We've seen their training, the decade-long endeavor Luffy has been on to master his abilities too, but as Luffy's modest craft launches from his humble beginnings into what we now know becomes a massive adventure, we cut back to the grim reality he finds himself in. If that isn't heartbreaking, I don't know what is. Highlighting quite effectively the stark contrast for us between the Luffy that left that day and the Luffy that lies both physically and emotionally broken before us now. Still beating himself up, Jinbei finally intervenes, stopping him from doing more harm to himself. Luffy, throughout this interaction, doesn't even resemble the same upbeat person who would look unflinchingly into the future with optimism. He's full of anger, resentment towards himself for not being enough, on top of grieving the single greatest loss of his life. These are new feelings for him, and it looks like he's about to lose himself in them until Jinbei points out that he has something important to live for, that he isn't alone. With that, Luffy silently counts his fingers. Each one representing someone that depends on him, that loves him, and that he loves too. And with that, a new energy riles up in the young bruised pirate as he exclaims, This dealing with loss and reconciling it into a healthy outlook is not only a terrific story to read, but also an important one for anyone dealing with loss and grief, which at some point will happen to all of us. But this is where the story starts to get interesting. Even more interesting than it already has been. Planting more seeds than I can count, forming a massive swerve the likes of which left me in the single biggest cliffhanger of my life. Really surprises everyone by swimming up to the island of women that Luffy is currently on, and presents the Straw Hat with a proposition. The scene then cuts and we don't know what his plan was. It's at this point we see the Straw Hats in individual scenes scattered across the world. Usopp got really fat. Circumstances, but all with the same goal of reconvening with their captain, whom they know must be hurting incredibly at this moment. Like the rest of the world, they've been aware of what's been happening with regards to the war, and they know what happened to Ace. But as they are making their individual arrangements to head towards their agreed upon rally point in the archipelago, something comes to their attention.
It's
it
crazy.
appears Luffy has returned to the spotlight once again. The respective places these Straw Hats have found themselves in have been really interesting too. Usopp's in a giant plant floating in the ocean, Chopper's in a rather advanced civilization, although their appearance might be a little bit deceptive. Zoro is in Hawkeye's Island. Nami is on a sky island that has advanced weather technology. Frankie finds himself on the island of one Dr. Vegapunk, who I think is the one responsible for the Kuma clones, I'm not sure. Brooke is captured by four-elbowed freaks, and Robin, somewhat auspiciously, finds herself in the company of those that want to bring her to Dragon as a friend.
Ah, yes.
At this point, we still have no idea as to what Luffy has done, and as the story continues, we get a host of short scenes. Paul has been keeping the Thousand Sunnies safe, Princess Vivi, her father, and Crocodile all react to what Luffy has been doing in the newspaper. Both Garp and Sengoku retire, making room for the next generation. Aokiji and Spoker both react also to what Luffy has done, but perhaps the most interesting, we get a small look at Kobe, who demonstrated Haki power. In this short but illuminating scene, we get information that apparently every naval personnel, from Vice Admiral and up, all have some form of Haki ability. But once that scene comes to a close, we finally learn what Luffy in fact did to grab the attention of the world. It could have been advantageous to remain hidden, go into hiding and to pretend to be dead like the Navy already expected him to be. But instead, Luffy rocks up to Navy headquarters, where the war has just finished taking place as it's under construction. All the naval personnel are away, by the way, because this is the last place I would expect anyone to be after what's just happened. And in this stroke of genius, he commandeers a ship, sails around the island in a circle before ringing the bell on the island 16 times. Apparently the bell he rang is called the Ox Bell, and to ring it 16 times is to signify thanks for the prior year and prayers for the upcoming one. It's only carried out by the Navy, and for Luffy to be pictured doing it in a moment of silence, it's a gesture to the rest of the new world that the new era has begun. But what makes this interesting is when each of the Straw Hats see this article on the paper, they all come to the same conclusion, putting a halt to their plans that they had to regroup, instead focusing all of their efforts on training to become stronger. It's revealed that this entire stunt of his had one specific purpose: to send a signal to his crew. The picture that was taken of Luffy taking a moment of silence sees a marking on his arm that reads 3D 2Y, with the 3D crossed out. The Straw Hats had agreed to reconvene at the archipelago in 3 days, but with the 3D crossed out, it seems the new plan Luffy has instructed is 2 years to get stronger. What a ridiculously brilliant way to communicate a specific message to your crew. To say that I freaked out when I read through this section is an understatement. And it's perfectly in keeping with the through line of the story right now. Luffy hates to be alone and away from his friends, but he's willing to extend the waiting period if it means that they are going to be safe together once again someday. And with the crew having decided what their respective training and preparation should be, Luffy follows Rayleigh into the forest, where he begins training, as the old pirate begins explaining to Luffy about the power that dwells within him, providing super interesting exposition that adds context to what already surrounds his death and what Luffy needs to do in order to master the now known to us 3 different types of Haki. Words cannot express how utterly giddy and enthralled I am by what I've just read. This is, without a doubt...
Have y'all realized that I haven't stopped smiling this entire time?
I can't imagine anything coming close in my immediate future.
I did drink some soda earlier.
Why this series, why this story is so infectiously popular. It's got more heart than most stories out there and has so much more ambition in its telling than I've ever been exposed to. The narrative and poetic symmetry in this story and this very chapter serves to me as a perfect example of why planning your story offers so much in terms of payoff and emotional significance.
It's true.
Why I've never stopped loving stories. They are the only place where magic actually exists, where good triumphs over evil, and where we can all escape to whenever our daily lives become overwhelming. You can take a small child full of dreams and through his eyes take us on an adventure the likes of which can uplift us and fill us with satisfaction. And so, despite my eyes full of tears, despite my excitement and sense of loss here, I couldn't help but smile as I watched Oda sew the very last stitch in the masterpiece of a tapestry he's woven over the course of what was then 13 years of work. This is an incredible and special moment in what I've come to understand as an incredibly special story. At the end of my second video covering this series, I confess that One Piece could very well be something I can appreciate but never fully love as much as those that grew up with it. And while I can't compare my enjoyment to anyone else's, this series has, on a fundamental level, changed how I view storytelling, and has seriously helped me through some really tough patches over the last 3 months. I'll be taking my short break now, so in case YouTube forgets about me, if you all do want to see more from me, maybe subscribe and hit that notification bell in case YouTube doesn't show my videos in the future when I return. But this most definitely isn't a goodbye. It's a see you later. So, until we meet again, guys, I've been totally not Mark. I'll see you when I see you, and thank you so much for taking the time out of your days to share it with me.
Look. Whew. And there you have it, guys, thus far. And this concludes the first part of this Nakama's journey, of the first set. Mark, I appreciate you again giving me access to your content, being able to post it, being able to do what I do, you know, here on the channel with the reaction. It's a great way for people who haven't watched One Piece in a long time to get like it's like a different view, perspective, and retelling of the story in a way, you know, it's like a kid telling you, like, look what I did today. And that's how I feel every time I watch one of your videos, man. So this is great. I appreciate everybody coming through, showing the love, showing support. And just like Mark said, if you guys want to continue seeing my videos, seeing other reactions, other Nakama's journey, because there will be other series that I would like to do like this in the meantime, while I wait for my boy to come back to the new world. I'm looking forward to continuing to do other reviews and other stuff, other content. So stay tuned for that. Make sure that if you guys love this, like this, comment, share, come through. And yeah, that's all I got. That's really it. Thank you guys again. I love you guys, and I hope you guys enjoyed the journey thus far. That's all I gotta say. Okay, DBGTX, I'm out.